Welcome to Agree to Disagree, where hot takes have gone nuclear. I'm Ray, here with Musa, and today we're going to be talking to you about books.
Well, we don't even know what we're going to talk about.
Well, it's fine. I've been reading more recently, so maybe that's the subject matter.
All right, take it away, Stephen King. Damn, tough crowd.
Anyways, well, you know what I like about books?
Tell me something.
I can always see myself in a character.
Like, do you mean like fully or fragments?
Well, it depends, because when I was reading Born a Crime back in grade 9, I felt a connection between me and Trevor Noah, in the sense that the way he was growing up and when he shared his experiences and his interactions, being the only kid that was mixed, I kind of can relate to that because there's a lot of situations that I'm in where I'm the only black person.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it just felt like it was coming from a more genuine place because he was writing about something that he has already experienced.
Yeah. I was being like, when I read The Outsiders, I always felt a connection between me and Ponyboy. I always felt like he was trying to navigate through teenhood, and that's what we were all trying to do at some point.
Yeah.
But also because he's misunderstood, and no one can really get a hold of him or try to figure out what his mind is going through. But I always wondered why he was so well-written, even though the author didn't really resemble the character to me.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but, does that not sound a little unethical to you?
But honestly, who am I to decide what's ethical? Am I Aristotle?
Well, I get that, but literature's always better when you can sense the author's voice in conflict.
Well, I get that, but I feel like that would defeat the whole purpose of being an author if you're just tailored to only one experience.
That's true. I mean, the way I see it is that every author obviously has books that cater to different audiences, but depending on who writes the book and what that book is about, the author's identity can really change, the way people see them.
Yeah. To me, I feel like an author is a poet or a biographer or a reporter. And with that title, I feel that it comes, or the talent of perspective comes. And to say that an author can only speak through this one lens is to diminish the whole purpose of being an author.
Yeah, okay, I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah. How you talked about how you felt that not being able to see an author in a book is kind of unethical.
Yeah.
Just want to ask, is the look of an author significant to the plot of a book or the characters in the book? Would it change if the author had been, or you could see the author in the characters?
Well, it depends on what the book is, but also, should an author be able to write a book based off of a perspective that they don't embody themselves? Because the way I see it is that some of the most successful authors do write about their own lived experiences. And I can use Trevor Noah as an example again. In his book, Born a Crime, there was an area where he was talking about, how he went to school and, the way that other kids interacted with him based off the way he looked. And in one of the parts, he said, "I became a chameleon. My color didn't change, but I could change your perception of my color."
Yeah.
So I feel like in that, part, he was basically just trying to talk about how, even if he didn't look like somebody else or didn't look like the other kids, based off of the way he could speak, he could talk the same way as them, he could understand the same things that they could understand.
Yeah.
It kind of helped the way that he was able to interact with them, in the sense that he kind of showed them that he could still have the same qualities and traits as them, even though he didn't look the same as them. Yeah. And I can kind of relate to that in my own experiences growing up, and even still being in school, where there's specific people who I hang out with that are not the same color as me, and I might not always feel heard or seen in terms of different things that I experience that I know they wouldn't experience because of their skin color and my skin color. And so that's why I kind of liked Trevor Noah's book, because I can really relate to that, and I like that he experienced the same things as he wrote about, so it felt like it came from a more genuine place.
Yeah. I agree with that, but to me personally, I feel like you can and you should be able to write on a perspective you don't have. And one of the reasons why is because no two perspectives are the same. To say, if you liked hot dogs and I liked hot dogs, we both have that same common perspective, but on the greater scheme of things where it's a serious topic, we're not going to have the exact same standpoint on things. And I feel that in regards to, books, whoever's writing it, even though they're not going to have the same exact perspective, if they experience it or not, it's still gonna have some sort of merit. It's still gonna be convincing in some sort of way. And for me, example I have is To Kill a Mockingbird. I've been reading that book recently. If you know anything about To Kill a Mockingbird, it's a very racial and like an oppressive book. And just some background on the book is that it's about a girl named Scout, and Scout and her brother are trying to like understand and relate to their father, Atticus Finch, and he's basically a lawyer whose duty is to like serve this black man who's on trial for raping a white woman, right? And so it basically kind of gives insight onto the black man's like racial like experiences as well, and just everyone growing up in that area's racial experiences too. And so the book was removed from the curriculum simply because the author, Harper Lee, she's a white woman.
Yeah.
But before I knew that, I genuinely thought it was a book written based off the experiences of a black person.
Yeah.
Right? And I did a little bit of digging, and a former school teacher named Denise Shannon, who's now a reporter for the Ottawa Citizen, believes that the book is about discrimination and racially and economic. And for a high school example, I found a sophomore named Jillian Hockley who said that the book teaches children in school about oppression so that we don't have to repeat our mistakes. And I feel like this proves that though it wasn't written by a black woman or just a black person in general, it was still able to give enough social value and be convincing enough to inflict some sort of emotion. And its historical values also prompt us to change and want us to do better in terms of racism and oppression. So another reason I think you should be able to write a book on a perspective you don't have is because of what it means to people in that perspective or people who have gone through those experiences. I think that all characters are not entirely reflective of the author, and positioning an author in one perspective removes being different and it removes creativity in literature. An example I have of this is a book called When God Made You by Matthew Paul Turner. I want to just keep in mind that Turner is a middle-aged white man. And in each illustrated portion of this book follows a little black girl.
How do you write that though?
I know, but so what would he know? What would he know about being a little black girl?
Nothing.
Nothing at all. But it still offers some sort of emotional value to little black girls who read the book.
Yeah.
I think that if we are conformed to our own perspective, we diminish individuality, and that diminishes the purpose of literature, which is to reach that audience or reach that perspective. So what he did is basically still, even though he didn't grow up in that lens, little black girls who will read his book feel seen or feel heard because of his choice to write a book on a perspective he doesn't have. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess like I see what you mean, because like a little black girl reading that would be like, wow, like this guy knows so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you mean. For me, I feel like one reason why like you probably shouldn't, or an author shouldn't be able to write a book based off of a perspective they did not embody, is because it can also be like, as problematic as some people may see it as the reader, it can also be problematic for the author. An example I have of that would be pen names. Like, you know what a pen name is?
Yeah. So
an author.
Safe name for an author. Yeah.
Yeah. So like Dr. Seuss is a pen name.
Yeah.
But one example I want to look at specifically is J.K. Rowling. So she uses the pen name, J.K. Rowling, but her real name is Joanne Rowling. And obviously, like, she's famous for most of her Harry Potter books and her Harry Potter series.
Yeah.
And I was like kind of just like looking into like why she chose that specific pen name, or why she goes by a pen name in general. And I looked up also like reasons of why authors use pen names, and the most like popular reason was for privacy.
Yeah.
And it even showed that she used that pen name because like her target audience is more tailored towards, I guess, teenagers, but could also be more like specific to young boys.
Yeah.
And as a woman, she kind of saw some conflict with writing a book from that perspective, and she didn't want to be judged for that, which is why she used a pen name. So I think that, again, it can just be like conflicting, and authors can also feel conflicted when trying to write a book from a perspective that they don't
Yeah.
have, where they're faced with that societal pressure of writing a book and how other people will see them, knowing that they don't have that same perspective shared. So that's one of the reasons why I think it can be like sort of an issue if an author does write a book based off of that perspective that they don't have.
What I liked about what you said was, because I spoke from a lens of external,
Yeah.
and then you spoke from a lens of like internal. So it's very hard to like argue those, but I like how like I could see where you're coming from as well.
Yeah, because
Oh,
when
yeah.
you think of it, like, you brought up the topic of how, like, it was a race thing, right?
Yeah.
But then when you look at J.K. Rowling, she did it more so for the purpose of gender.
Yeah.
Because she's a woman writing a book.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like different reasons
Yeah.
for this. Yeah.
So my third and final reason why I believe that authors should be writing books based off of perspectives that they do share or they do embody is because as a reader, almost every reader can gain like a strong sense of connection with the author, knowing that the author has shared the same perspective as them. So I'm going to use myself as an example for this one. I'm not a big reader,
Yeah.
and I never have been a big reader, and I don't read as much as I should, and I know that. But when I do read, or anytime I do read a book, I'm more inclined to read something that caters to what I'm looking for in a certain given situation. So, like, for example, if I'm trying to get better with my style or I want to learn how to dress better, I'm going to read a book that's written by someone who has a good fashion sense, not someone who has never explored style. Exactly. So I'll just use an example from, like, last year. So during the New Year's, one of my goals was to work on myself and just pick up better habits in general. And so my sister gave me this book, and it's called The Difference by Sabir Chowdhury. And he basically goes on to explain like his own experiences by two different standpoints. So the first one is a financial standpoint, and he talks about his business and how he was able to grow financially, exponentially, all that stuff. And the second standpoint, which is personal, and he talked about he wrote about how just having certain skills like good communication, good people skills, gave him a chance to create good opportunities for himself. And that really resonates with me because he was able to give me in that book exactly what I was looking for in terms of what my goals were. So there was that connection between me and the author that I felt.
Yeah.
In conclusion, though, I feel like it's better for an author to write a book based off of a perspective that is encapsulated by them because it gives the reader a better sense of being understood. It's less conflicting for the author, and it's easy to incorporate past lived experiences into literature as an author.
Yeah.
That's just kind of my take on that.
But I think that I was more concerned with resonating with the perspective of the character and not really the perspective of the author, or just being able to resonate with a character. And I think that in perspective being one of the author's like greatest tools, I think capturing what it is to be a character or using real world events, it helps to bring that the character and like find similarities with the reader. So an example I have of this would be Fantastic Mr. Fox by Ronald Dahl. I read it when I was younger, but as I grow older and like reread the book or just like, remember what happened or the content of the book, I remember wanting to be just like Mr. Fox, or just be as slick and as sly and just be as cool as Mr. Fox. But I never really was concerned with being Ronald Dahl, even though he was the author. And I remember now, or just on topic of this conversation, he's not a fox and he's not a thief. So there's no way he'd understand, or or the book would be better if it had been written by a fox or a thief. Even though it probably would have added something else, but it still offers some sort of value to me as a reader. And so I think that because he used these humanly themes and the elements like I talked about before, I was able to see myself in Mr. Fox. And just to conclude everything I was saying before, I'm not really trying to say that an author isn't as important as their words, but I think from my personal experiences and like the testimonies of others, that being exposed to different perspectives and determining what a book means to me outside of like the author's differences and seeing myself in characters, I can confidently say that you should be able to write a book based off a perspective you don't have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you mean. Like, from the way you see it, and I agree, is that like when you look at it from a character's perspective, it adds some sort of like sentimental value to whatever book you're reading, even if the author isn't that person.
And with you, it's like you would want to read a book where you know that the author has been through the same thing that you're going through, or has some sort of expertise in the topic that you want to gain a lot of knowledge from.
Yeah, and also just come from like, what do you call it? Preference as well.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
I don't know. Should we agree to disagree?
Yeah.